I can swim. Just can't walk or dress myself. Take it easy. Take it easy.
Salute, and welcome back to the Black Ocean. Now, so I'm getting deep in with your host, the one and only Great Black Shark. Oh yes, tonight, family, we have a very serious broadcast to discuss here. Okay, we're gonna review a case that I ran across, and this is an older case now, but there's some lessons to be learned from the outcome of how this trial went down. Very tragic situation. And it's going to speak to exactly why it's important for us to try, because we get that things don't always work out, but it's important for us to try to form whole, stable Black families, because this situation right here is a tragedy all the way around, and it's a cautionary tale for any, and I got to go here tonight, okay? I got to go here for any of these women, you know what I'm saying, that's out here. I don't need no man. You think you're just going to have babies and just do everything by yourself and rely on, government programs, child support, etc. Well, this case right here is going to show you to some of the things that you could run into, heaven forbid. Hopefully it will never be this serious, but you could run into some issues, okay? Because when we have our children, raising children is a two-parent job. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's the natural order of things. Yes, things don't always work out. But unfortunately, today you have men and women trying to use every excuse in the book not to get together and form stable, whole, healthy Black families, okay? So this case right here, like I said, is going to be an example of a very tragic situation that went wrong. And, I hope everybody will pay attention and get the lessons that we're going to be going over tonight, okay? Because man, when I ran across this, man, I was just like, wow, this is just awful, man. I hate this. But, I care about our people. And if I see how we can get a lesson out of something, I'm going to present it to our people. Okay. So with that said, first of all, let me know if everybody can hear me loud and clear in the chat room. I hope everybody's doing well. All right. Let me scroll up and see who I can see. And for the new people, let me remind the new people, because sometimes you'll say this or I'll say this, and you'll still have somebody come in here, I didn't get a notification. And I keep telling you, if you look at the archives and the volume of content, type of content we do, this is a classroom trying to teach Black people things and help Black people things. You're not going to get no notifications to this channel 9 times out of 10, okay? You're just not. You're going to have to be invested enough if you value the information over here to actually come and look at the community tab, come look at the live tab and see when broadcasts are going to be live, if you're interested, okay? That's what you're going to have to do. So all the, dude, I ain't get a notification. How many times I have to keep saying that? So I just letting the new people know that, this ain't the Coon and Buffooning channel. The channels that try to teach something don't, get a notification, get shadow bans, they mess with the broadcast, etc., okay? Just letting y'all know that. Let me scroll up and greet those of you that I see joining us here. Let me make sure I can see everybody first and foremost. And again, let me know if you can hear me loud and clear. I see the good sister Patricia Jenkins in here, D. Foster, the good brother Dr. Monster. Cause boy, at the end of that name, man, I just feel crazy saying that. Dr. Monster, that's what I'm gonna call you. The good sister V. Mosby in here, only Pamela's way. Tanisha Murdoch, I see you. Let's see, Tony, what's going on? Okay, I see Bruce in here. What's up, good brother? Let's see, Key Prince in the building. Fudophilia is in here. All right, let's see. Charmaine Callahan, I think I'm pronouncing that right, is in here. Theater of the Absurd is in here. Greater Achievements, all right. What's going on to you? Priscilla Taylor and the good sister, Sakina Collins is in here. Okay, and salute to the good brother Latravia Lost for the cash out. Thank you very much, my good man. So, fam, we're going to go ahead and get straight into it here. But before I do, man, let me tell y'all something about some of the upcoming content we're going to have, because just when I thought, I was going to be able to just leave certain subject matter alone, I'm going to have to bring some things back. There's some goofy trends that are going around that I'm going to have to address, as well as put a message out there for you sisters in the community. And this will help you brothers as well if you have women in your family that you care about, even your significant others, your wives, long-term girlfriends, whatever the case may be, nieces, okay, female cousins, sisters, mothers, etc. Okay, I'm gonna have to do a broadcast coming up to show y'all some of these new ways they're trying to get crafted with as far as abducting y'all. And I've said this before, and I don't really care who outside of our community gets offended. I've covered way on back, a couple of years back, how like with the influx of these illegal aliens over here, I'm gonna call them what they are. A lot of them are gonna be targeting you sisters, okay? So I'm gonna have to put that together. It's gonna be some back-to-back content over here, all right? Usually I try to like, give everybody time to catch up on things, okay? But this is too important to not cover, so I'm gonna definitely be putting that broadcast together. Be looking out for that. You'll see it in the live section and posted on the community tab as well. Okay. Let me ask a quick question for something too, because like I said, chances are you won't get notifications for this channel. All right. Let me ask everybody that's in here to take a quick temperature of the room. I'm gonna get some audience participation, see what y'all think. The upcoming broadcast that I have, because a lot of times if I have a lot of stuff coming up, I just go ahead and set it in advance. Would y'all like me to set more than one on the community tab? You know what I'm saying? So that'll give you a better chance of seeing the broadcast coming up. Or are you okay with just coming to the channel and looking, or just checking the community tab and, finding out that way? I mean, let me see. How many of y'all in here from what we have so far, y'all cool with that? Because, hey, you know what I'm saying? So I'll try to do some things to help offset that, the little shenanigans they play. But PewTube is going to do what they do. You know what I'm saying? So just let me know, you know what I'm saying? Like, are y'all okay with that? Do y'all want me to start posting more broadcasts when they're coming, like before they go live, or what? Like, what do y'all think? Give me a thumbs up if you're cool with it, or are you cool just coming to the channel and seeing? Because, hey, look, if when we broadcast, usually over here, our scheduled set time is 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Patreon, we usually go live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, okay? But just let me know, you know what I'm saying, and put it in the comments after the broadcast, and, we'll take it from there. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that said, we're going to go ahead and get into this. And again, I'm going to warn everybody, this is going to be kind of some graphic material, very heartbreaking story, man, but nonetheless, there's some lessons we need to get out of it, okay? So, we're going to go ahead and get started, you know what I'm saying? And I want y'all to really listen to what they're going to be talking about, everything that led up to it. Like I said, I'll be stopping it here or there to point out some things that, stood out to me, because sometimes, when these tragedies occur, the best thing you can do is try to get the lesson out of it to prevent future tragedies like this in our community, okay? And my community is the only one I'm concerned with, because don't nobody else try to look out for us. So with that said, we're going to get started.
The sheer brutality and sadistic nature of what went on that morning in that house. It's something that sticks with you for the rest of your life.
A brutal killing.
She had 80-something stab wounds on her. That amount of rage is usually going to be somebody very close to the victim.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
They're telling me about how their mother has 2 boyfriends.
It's kind of a sugar daddy relationship.
She kept yelling, "No, don't come to my house."
The truth will be revealed.
Everything told me that something wasn't right here and that it wasn't over.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. "20 miles east of Atlanta lies the sleepy town of Conyers, Georgia.
It's just a short distance from the heart of the city, basically. But it still, in a lot of aspects, still has kind of a small town community feel.
We're a very safe community, very little violence. We probably have maybe 1 or 2 homicides a year. It wouldn't be unusual to go a year without a homicide.
But on a calm January afternoon, A piercing noise cuts through the neighborhood.
I got a phone call to report to the chief's office. It was around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Chief let me know that there had been a homicide and that currently the Rockdale County Sheriff's Department was on scene.
Twins, Jasmia and Tasmia Whitehead, have made a horrific discovery.
Now, let me pause it right here, okay? For those of you that have never heard of this case and this will be your first time hearing about it. Conyers, Georgia, okay, Rockdale County. You heard what the sheriff was saying. And to be honest with you, a lot of places, even right now in 2025, where it's black folks at, when you hear all these white supremacists talking about black on black crime, all this black crime, like he said, in a lot of places where most of our people are, you don't really have a high murder rate like that, okay? You really don't. I mean, it'll be other crimes, but as far as like high murder rates and stuff like that, nah, not really in too many places down here in Georgia. It's not really like that, okay? And if you do, and you start looking at who's committing the murders, and see, this is what I try to tell a lot of our people, you have to kind of look at, okay, murder is committed, crime period is committed by every demographic and racial group. So you have to start looking at who's doing this. And a lot of times you'll see it's them folks that have a lot of higher numbers. However, this case is going to be one of the outliers where it's not going to be that way. Now, again, if you are a young sister listening to this broadcast, I really want you to pay attention, because if you're just not joining us, my goal with this is to try to show you why it's not a cool thing to be going with the mentality that some, not all of the women in our community, that some try to promote, hey, you don't need no man, just, have babies, you know what I'm saying, what have you, and just go out here and do your thing as long as you're getting assistance or child support or whatever. There's other factors that go into raising children, okay? I mean, that is look, and shout out to the sisters that, your circumstance, you couldn't help that. Sometimes you go your separate ways. Sometimes the partner that you choose, okay, wasn't where two dead flies, and for the safety of the child, you part. Okay, we understand that. But you have to understand that more goes into raising a child than just giving them food, shelter, material resources, etc. Okay, raising consists of instilling things into that child, and sometimes that's very difficult for any woman that's out here raising kids by themselves. They understand how difficult that is. When you have the father in the picture, hey, that can give one party or the other a break. It's a team effort, okay? So, I just wanted to put that out there. Hopefully for any youngsters that's listening to this, or any that are catching on the playback, you will kind of get the lessons that we're going to be trying to learn from this tonight. Let's let it continue.
Happened to be a deputy just driving by who they flagged down.
The twins ran up to the side of the car and literally beat on the side of the car, screaming that they had found their mother dead.
For Commanding Officer Jackie Dunn and Lead Detective Ken Swift, it's their first murder of the year.
When we first arrived, there was already a number of officers cordoning off the scene, and there were 2 young girls in the back of the van crying hysterically.
But you have these 2 very sweet-looking little girls traumatized.
One of the twins was biting the inside of her forearm. She said, it's just a nervous habit. I do it when I'm nervous. It was heartbreaking to watch. You want to be sensitive to their emotional state. And so you treat them with kid gloves. You're very delicate in the way that you approach things.
The twins direct police to the location of their mother's body. 34-year-old Nikki Whitehead.
When you walked up to Nikki's home, you see chaos. Stuff had all been thrown about. You see overturned chairs, broken vases on the floor, and you see and smell lots of blood.
You could smell it like, the rust off of a penny. It was really, really strong. Nikki was where the daughters said they discovered her, just off the master bedroom, in a jacuzzi-like garden tub with water in it.
And she's laying partially submerged with her head out of the water.
Finding her naked and deceased in the tub full of water, all of that immediately calls your attention to a violent struggle of some sort. The sheer brutality and sadistic nature of what went on in that house. It's something that sticks with you for the rest of your life. There's no way to really prepare for it, but at the same time, you do have a job to do that is important, and that ultimately comes first.
The sheer violence of the scene gives detectives an insight into her killer.
Nikki had 80-something stab wounds on her.
1 second, ladies and gentlemen, hold tight. 1 second, 1 second. Give me just a second here. Don't worry, we still gonna cover this lesson, even if we just have to listen to the audio, okay? Because this is definitely important, and I cannot afford not to go over this. So even if we have to listen to the audio, we will do just that. Do not worry, we are still going to listen to this, no problem. All right. So give me just a second. And let me know when you all can hear me loud and clear in the chat room yet again, because we're going to continue this. We have to do it. Okay. We definitely have to do it, because I'm going to tell you something. Usually, and look, this is a good example of what I mean about, like, when you're trying to do something, you know, every now and again, they'll do this when we're trying to teach a lesson over here. But hey, nonetheless, we're going to do what we got to do. All right. Because, I mean, like I said, if I was doing any other type of content with some nonsense, hey, they wouldn't have no problem. All right. So give me 1 second to make some adjustments, and we will get this going here. All right. Just a second. Just a second. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, hey, listen. Of course they're going to do that, but we still going to listen to this, even when we have to listen to the audio. And like I said, I'll show you what I can here or there. But let me tell you something, right? The way that this story is going to break down, for those of you that haven't seen or hadn't gone over it, it's still going to stick to the lesson that I was saying we're going to get from this early in the broadcast, all right? So this is what I'm going to do. We're going to pick it up where it left off. And I want y'all to listen to it, okay? Because I'm gonna still interrupt it to give my commentary on what happened, okay? So now, this is a family of 3. You see the mother over here on the left, like they was telling you. And, you know, like I said, it's hard to talk about it, but we have to talk about it nonetheless. So we're gonna pick it up where they left off. Get your pens and pads out, take notes, because I'm gonna point out some things that could have been done differently, that might would have, you know, led to this sister living, and instead of her losing her life in the tragic way that she did. So let it continue.
That's a lot of rage. Statistically, that amount of stab wounds, that amount of rage is usually going to be somebody very close to the victim.
They must now determine what took place during Nikki's final 24 hours.
Piecing or reconstructing the last hours of somebody's life prior to us discovering their body is vital. It allows us to basically construct a timeline of the last people who were to see her alive, and then go from there as far as eliminating individuals or focusing on individuals that may or may not have been involved. with the twins being the ones who discovered their mother, we wanted to interview them, find out what they saw, and begin that aspect of the investigation. We bring them into the room, and they're both, Jasmine and Tasmaya, are extremely sorrowful. They are crying. They are inconsolable, as you would expect for young teenage girls to discover their mother deceased. I didn't want to leave them alone. Nobody would have wanted to leave them alone.
Police begin softly, aiming to discover more about their mother.
We learned that Nikki was a hairdresser, and that she was also attending Bowder College, which is a fashion college. So she had aspirations of doing more than just hair. She loved the twins, and Nikki had them involved in cheerleading and dance. Their grades were all A's, exceptional students.
The interview then shifts focus to the last time the twins saw her.
They told me that the night before the murder, Nikki had come in from, their words, partying.
And then when they woke up the next morning, they got ready for school. And when they knocked on their mother's bedroom door, she did not answer. And so they left for school as they normally did. They said that they had not seen their mother at all that morning.
We know she is dead at about 4 when the twins get home from school.
That leaves an 8 to 9 hour window for the attack.
Now, I want you to listen how they're describing, what happened so far. And I'm going to go ahead and say this, man, okay? Because like I said, for those of you that haven't seen this or heard this, rather, it's going to be very disturbing. But let me go ahead and say something, man, okay? A lot of people, okay, a lot of parents, period, because this is normal for parents to do. You want to give your kids the best of everything that you didn't have, okay? A lot of times, you give them things that they didn't earn. I'm going to say this. That can be very, very harmful to a child, okay? It can be harmful if it's 2 parents in the situation. It can be definitely very harmful if there's 1 parent in the situation, no matter whether it's the woman or whether it's the man. You have to instill discipline and structure in children very, very early on, okay? You have to. You have to, because, like, the thing about that is, and I have to go here, if you don't do that and set up structure in a family raising your children, and you let them do whatever they want, you give them whatever they want from an early age, they get accustomed to people always telling them yes, nobody tells them no, then that's kind of how the folks raise their children. And we see what their children grow up to do. Okay, we've seen that countless times. I don't even need to go down, that path of everything they do. Little Connor and little Tiffany, hey, get mad, here they come to school, you know what they do. Okay, so now, I can understand if some people grew up a certain way and you want to give your child the best life you can, but you have to make them earn things. When you earn things, you appreciate things, and you instill disciplining them from an early age and tell them no, okay? And it works better if you got 2 parents in the situation that's able to, help each other out, and y'all on the same page as far as how you're going to raise your children, okay? I mean, so, you know what I'm saying? A lot of that's going to kind of factor into this. You're going to see why I'm saying that. And again, I want you to listen to how they land this out. And this is the part that really just is going to be beyond a lot of people. Because for most of us, okay, for most people, if you grew up with your parents, okay, or a parent, whatever your situation may be, if they took care of you, they were good to you, we could never even fathom anything like what you're about to hear. I mean, I know I couldn't. I could not at all, okay? But, sometimes when people are in these situations, and let me say this too for today, all right, for today's parenting with some people, you got some people, even if there are 2 parents, they have this thing with their children where they want to, let their tablets raise them, the computer, whatever, video games, etc. Anybody else except for them, they want to spend time putting their kids off on everybody else instead of doing their job and instilling values and some type of structure into their children, right? When you do that, that's very harmful. That is very harmful, and that is not, the way to go about things, all right? So we're going to let it continue further here with what goes on. Like I said, some of you might have seen it. Some of you may have not, but I'm going to be stopping it to point out certain things. So let's let it continue.
As the questioning continues, the crime scene is also being processed.
It was almost impossible to make your way through the living room without stepping on something. Everywhere you looked, everywhere you turned, there was evidence of a struggle. Everything has to be photographed. Everything has to be cataloged and accounted for, so you're very conscious about where you step and how you proceed through the crime scene.
It's incredibly important to collect as much evidence as possible. Even something that may seem inconsequential, you don't know what it means until the investigation is advanced and you have more information.
You could see she's got her back to the wall and goes from one end of the wall all the way down to the other, and you can tell it's a battle. You can see that she made it to the back door. You can see her blood grip on the door handle. She tried to get out. The door was locked. And then you can finally see at that frame to her bedroom door where she's holding on to the wall, and then you can see the blood streaks as she grips the wall and slides down. And that is the largest concentration of blood. And that's the fatal area, we think. Looking at the carpet, you can see where she was drugged, blood streak going into the bedroom.
As far as the house itself, there were not your normal indicators that you would find in instances of a forced entry, broken locks, or a kicked-in door, or broken windows.
So we knew that whoever had been in there had been allowed into the house.
The twins then say that when they arrived back at the house, it was locked.
I came through the door, I put my key in, I just turned it, and I opened the door.
When a woman is killed, oftentimes the first person police look at is her boyfriend or her partner or her husband. And the reason for that is because it's the person they're closest to, and that's the person with the most motive.
Well, we learned that the girl's biological father pretty much disappeared not long after their birth. They knew of him, but he had moved to Canada.
He was eliminated from any sort of person of interest, right away.
But the girls say there is a man in Nikki's life.
The two girls told us about Robert Head and the relationship that he had with their mom, and that he was a truck driver that was gone for long periods of time, but that he owned the house and that they were allowed to stay there. The age difference between them was significant. I believe it was around 20 years. It's kind of a sugar daddy relationship that the girls were aware of. A unique relationship, to say the least.
Now, I want to pause it right here, right? Okay, and again, I hate this sister lost her life this way, all right, because a lot of you probably see what ended up happening, but let me say something, man, because again, we got to get the lessons out of these things. Again, I said at the beginning of the broadcast, sometimes things don't work out with people. There's no such thing as a perfect situation, but we have to, and I'm talking to men and women alike, we have to try to be responsible in the decisions that we make with who we choose to start a family with, have children with. And one of the things that I hate to see, especially for a woman, to be in a situation where, okay, as you heard, the child's biological father took off not too long after they was born, dipped to Canada. And she met this new guy, and it was a situation, I guess, where he was letting her stay in his house. Hey, you never want to be in that situation, ladies. You don't. You don't. If it's not something that you own or have your name on the lease, you don't really want to be in that situation, because let's just say things go left. Okay, that person could get mad and decide to kick you out or whatever. A whole bunch of things going on, right? So, you know what I'm saying? The sister was trying to do the best she could, but again, we don't know exactly, how she ended up meeting the biological father, what have you. But I will say this to every sister, and I've said this for years: you really got to take your time and scrutinize that person that you have children with, right? You have to, because you're gonna need that person to help you raise them kids. I can't say that enough. I don't care who don't like what I'm saying. It is what it is. We're gonna get the lessons out of this over here tonight for the people that want to listen to it, all right? So what I'm saying is this situation turned into something, okay, where, hey, who knows what the sister was trying to do as far as going out of her way to take care of 2 children, okay? Then they hit them teenage years where it's very hard to kind of, whether it's men or young ladies or women, or young ladies or men that you're trying to raise, they hit them teenage years. Hey, that's a whole nother ball game. And you parents out there, you should know what I'm talking about. You definitely appreciate having 2 people around to help raise them when they hit them teenage years. I mean, it's going to be a lot you got to navigate, especially in today's world. You got different influences, you know what I'm saying, that could be coming into the picture. So with these girls, who knows what type of influences they were around? I mean, the grandparents were trying to help out. But again, I've also said this, and this is the part where a lot of younger people don't like. Grandparents are supposed to be auxiliary help raising kids. They're not supposed to be your primary go-to if both of the parents are there. Both the biological parents are alive and well. The grandparents are supposed to be auxiliary help. Okay, you rely on them when you need them. They're not supposed to be primary. Okay, now raising kids is a younger person's game. Okay, now there are plenty of people that were raised by their grandparents that were a blessing to them because they wouldn't have had nobody else. But where the parents are present, you should not try to put that off on grandparents, because there's only so much they can do. You know what I'm saying? They can provide a place to stay or what have you. But as far as being up to date and up to speed on everything that they need to, especially today, there's very few grandparents, you know what I'm saying, that's going to be able to keep up with all of that. Now, if it's grandparents from my era, okay, Gen Xers, okay, yeah, we're a little bit more savvy to what's going on out here. You know what I'm saying? As far as the bad influences on kids or what have you. So, that's a bit easier. But again, this message is to try to resonate with those that would say, okay, you know what? Screw it. I want a baby. I'm going to go out here and just get one. Or if you picking dudes, you know what I'm saying, to start a family with by how cute they are and, they were dressing and wearing things like you. No, this is not a man to start a family with, okay? I mean, I have to say these things. Nobody else is. I'm going to do it. I'll be the one. People look at me as a bad guy for saying that. I'm going to say that, okay? Because I want to try to do what's possible to try to get people to think and think before they get into a situation like this. Because, again, let's just go ahead and state the obvious. Let's just say, because this does happen, we have to admit this before we let this continue. Let's just say it was a 2-parent household, because sometimes, the exception to the rule apply. You can try to put everything you can good into a child, give them structure, values, discipline, and they choose to do whatever they want by the time they get a certain age. Now, in a situation like this, if, she was with the father or whoever, you know what I'm saying, that would have been 2 people that would have had to deal with it. It wouldn't have been as easy for them to do what they did. You know what I'm saying? So you have to really break these things down today, because you have a demographic of people that they just, look, I get it. We got our problems on both sides, men and women, but it's best, as I always say over the years, to try to get with people that you can form a family with. Because if you don't, if something like this occurs, it might be a situation where your partner end up saving your life on either end of the equation, the man or the woman in the situation, okay? And again, like I said, we don't know all the details surrounding, other than the father just took off not too long after birth. That means, I'm going to call him their biological father when we're 2 dead flies put together. I don't know if it was a white guy or not. You see, they're very fair-skinned young ladies there, and I use that term loosely. Their mother's fair-skinned, but we don't know what the father looks like or what have you. But I'm speaking more to the character, okay? Because see, you got to understand something. I want to say this. Hopefully, there will be young women that have their fathers and grandparents and uncles that will school them on what I'm about to say. But when it comes to choosing a man, all right, you got to understand something. Once you get to a certain age, if you can't see yourself having kids with a person, or I'll give you this, let's make it very simple. If you, as a young lady, okay, or a person that hasn't had any kids, okay, a sister that hasn't had any kids, and this kind of applies for the men as well. If you can't say, okay, I can see myself forming a family with this person, you know what I'm saying? If that makes you uncomfortable, there's your red flag right there. It don't have to make sense to nobody else but you. You listen to that gut feeling, okay? I mean, you don't try to force anything like that because, hey, you know, that could be something beyond you or me telling you that this would be a bad idea, okay? So again, I just want to point those couple of things out. So we're going to let this continue. They're going to further describe how things led up to this sister losing her life. And then the most disgusting thing about it is when they, you know, get to listening to what these twins had to say about it, how they gonna have their story fabricated together. I mean, this was just awful, man. But like I said, it's a lesson to be learned. So let it continue.
The twins then provide Robert a potential motive.
Does your mom have any other friends or anybody else that come over that you know of?
Talked to a lot of men. Talked to some men. But the only one I've been hearing her talk to lately is Joe.
When police are investigating a case of someone who was sexually involved with another individual, and they realize that there is some sort of love triangle going on, they will pursue that angle and they will investigate it, and they will see if possibly they'd rather have that person dead than have them with somebody else.
Robert Head was immediately a person of interest, obviously, because of his relationship with Nikki. Given the fact that there was another boyfriend in the picture, it became extremely important that we find him and speak to him.
The discovery of a possible affair between Nikki Whitehead and another man has made her boyfriend, Robert, the first suspect in her murder.
The twins said that Robert had overheard Nikki speaking to a man on the phone the night before the murder. We had to eliminate the jealousy angle.
To do so, they must first find him.
We were able to contact his employer.
He was driving his truck in another state.
They confront him with the twins' allegations.
Robert told us the night before the murder, they had argued because their agreement was she wasn't going to talk to other men in front of him. He told us that he loved her to no end, that she was his princess, but he understood the age difference and that he knew when he went out of town that if she had boyfriends, he just accepted that. But when he came home, it was him.
People have open relationships, but in every open relationship, there comes a breaking point where the person or one of the persons involved has definitely had enough.
Robert downplays the argument, but the truth lies with the timeline.
They have GPS on the truck that he drives, and so we were able to see when he left town. He was out west and would not have been possible for him to commit the crime.
Satisfied, police move on to the other man in the love triangle.
She's got a live-in boyfriend and she's got a second boyfriend, and that's definitely a relationship we was going to investigate.
Once again, Nikki's daughters provide a critical clue.
Now I'm gonna pause it right here, okay? And again, I hate this sister lost her life like this, you know, but even before it got to the point where she lost her life, this was already an unstable situation. This is never wise to do. I mean, look, let me say this, right? And I'm saying this to everybody, men and women alike, right? Best thing to do is just be honest with people, man. Just be honest with people. If it was a situation where she met this older guy, he was a trucker, okay, they said there's like a 20-year age gap between them, you know, hey, just be straight up about whatever your intentions are, whatever they're not, okay? You stand there, get your money together, get your own place, because the goal should have been to let me get myself in a stable position for me and my kids, okay? And I'm talking to men too when I say that, okay? Stability. When you become a parent, stability must be the main thing, all right? That's what's most important for your family, all right? You don't want situations where you in one person's house, okay, like they said, this guy on the road, then you got other dudes coming by. And see, let me say something to the men too, because like I said, we're gonna give the lessons that need to be given over here tonight. My young brothers, you know I've told you this for years, okay, even though that doesn't have anything to do with this particular case, but I must take the time to say it again because it's been a while since I've said it. I tell young brothers this all the time, man. Whatever you doing out here, don't you ever be going over to no chick house and you know she's involved with somebody, married, whatever the situation is. Nah, if you gonna do that, do not go to somebody else's house. I say it to women as well. Sisters, if you know you're gonna be doing whatever you're doing, don't be going to these other women's houses like that. That'll make somebody completely lose it, okay? And see, you can kind of see that's kind of what these two little demons here, because I'm gonna just call them what they are. That's what they thought they was going to bank on. You see how they tried to set this up? This is terrible that their minds would be this far gone and poisoned to even try to use that angle, because, see, here's the thing. You can come up with the lie, but if you're going to be stuck right there and they got you in custody, that's not going to work. The only way that would have possibly had a chance to work if they would have, you know, told that lie and then had some kind of way to leave, you know, the state or leave the country. And they didn't have that, okay, as far as the two little demons. So we see the angle they was going to try to use. But again, I say to men and women alike, be careful out here getting in them situations. I don't care how attractive the person is, whether it's a woman or a man, whoever you're dealing with. You don't go to nobody's house, man. That's a messy situation. You know, and again, we don't know what their mother was thinking. We don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like, what was going through her mind, what that plan was. We don't know if she was just planning to stay there for a short amount of time, get her money right, get her own situation, whatever it was, you know. Sometimes if you in a situation where you don't have your own, that's what your main focus must be. You can't be focused on trying to go out here and be on the dating scene or whatever. When you got them kids, man, everything else should be centered around them. Okay, it should be. But in this situation right here, everything hit the rails. And see, who knows? Not that it justifies it, but who knows if these two little spawns of Satan over here, they might have kind of saw her mama, their mother's dealing with different dudes or what have you. And, you know, like I said, that does not justify it at all. That's not an excuse. But again, you got to factor all of this into what might have happened here. OK, so we're going to let it continue. And like I said, I'll be stopping it again to point out certain things that I noticed.
They brought up that their mother had been arguing with her boyfriend, Joe, on the phone the night before the actual incident.
This was about 3 a.m. She kept yelling at Joe, "No, don't come to my house."
This is the second fight for Nikki in her last 24 hours.
Okay. What do you know about Joe?
Like, they argue a lot because
she was like, have a nice life, man.
Yeah, because they were arguing last night.
Was it an argument that went bad? It is a viable motive for murder, and it has to be investigated.
Then, a witness from that day heightened suspicions even further.
Canvases of a neighborhood are always good in crime scenes like this and incidents like this. The neighbors revealed that there was a black car parked out front, either on the curb or in the driveway.
The car was spotted at 1:30 p.m.
We wanted to identify and find out who it belonged to.
Pretty quickly, we looked up Joe Carter, and he had a black vehicle registered to him.
Police tracked Joe down at his workplace.
Joe is a barber, and his barbershop happens to be right beside the salon that Nikki did hair at.
When we went in to speak to him, everybody inside the barbershop initially was very reluctant and dismissive of us. We said, this has to do with Nikki Whitehead. It's very important. And I guess by the tone of our voice, he understood that this wasn't just some idle questions that we had. When we told Joe what had happened, Joe's reaction was shock. And, you know, he was trying to light a cigarette and his hands were shaking. Seeing anybody's reaction to news like that is always important.
As an investigator, you're looking for the responses. Are they genuine? Are they fake? What we do is we look at it and say, that's interesting. What did they have to hide?
Joe Carter's admission to arguing with Nikki Whitehead the night before she is killed prompts police to bring him downtown.
We told him we're here to see if you're a suspect or to eliminate you as a suspect.
Joe described their relationship as somewhat rocky. It's Investigation 101. You begin to probe about what the argument was, what the disagreement is, why, what was causing the tension. They had been arguing about her use of alcohol and the status of their relationship.
Joe also claims that on the day Nikki was killed, he spent the entire time working at the barbershop, over 16 miles away.
We asked him to go take a polygraph exam.
A polygraph examination, in essence, is to provide you with information only and not necessarily evidence, to perhaps corroborate a feeling or information you have. If you believe the witness is not telling you the total truth, a polygraph may help you to prove they're being deceitful about something.
But he passed, and he was not showing any deceit. We also interviewed his co-workers, who all confirmed his alibis.
His concern appeared to be genuine and for Nikki.
So now I'm gonna pause it right here. You heard them say, okay, the detectives say that, you know, the argument, from what they were able to gather, it was kind of over her, you know, drinking, over Nikki Whitehead drinking. So I would assume that, you know, maybe the sister, you know, like to kind of have, you know, her alcohol or what have you. That was probably due to, you know, the stress of being a single parent or have you trying to deal with them kids. Cause I mean, like, look, from what you're gonna gather, they was kind of, you know, I mean, come on, we already kind of know that age, by the time they get teenagers, they're gonna be hard-headed, hard to tell them what to do. She there trying to struggle how to deal with that by herself, trying to figure out how to, you know, keep food on the table, etc. You know, and a lot of people that can't handle that pressure, some people turn to alcohol, some people turn to drugs, and you know, I've seen it happen on both ends of the equation, whether it's a single father, single mother. Either side, okay? And that's never good, you know what I'm saying, for anybody to turn to that. But again, how you alleviate some of that, and I'm saying this for the people that are listening here, we have to try to form stable families, stable, healthy families, okay? All right, everybody's situation gonna be different, but today it's just too many people just not even trying at all, okay? And see, sometimes that leads to tragedy on both ends because, see, let's look at it this way. Suppose it's not something as tragic as this. Well, you have the other tragedy is when you don't try to form a stable, healthy family. Those children are not getting the nurturing, the guidance, and the discipline that they need from both halves, okay? For example, you got a young boy that's important for him to see his father grow up and understand that, you know, he's going to be under his father's instruction, especially by a certain age. Same thing for, you know, any young girl. She needs to see the example of what her mother's going to be doing, okay? And how she should grow up as a lady, okay? The children are going to be missing those things if you don't have that stable family intact, all right? So I'm just saying, even if it wasn't a situation as tragic as this one, there's damage still being done. And then for us as Black people, we know we're targeted in this system. You send your kids to these public school systems, they see they only dealing with one parent. Oh, man, they get ready to try to have a field day. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's just some things I want to put on people's minds that's out here. Try to be responsible with whatever you do, okay? Everybody's growing. Everybody got their own way of living, but, you know, just try to be responsible for the kids coming to the picture because, you know, like I said, you just don't want to find yourself in a disadvantageous situation as far as the parenting end. And again, yes, that's good if you got grandparents, you know, that's willing to help, but you got to kind of really be realistic about that if they are of a certain age. If they're of a certain age, you really don't want to be putting that much on elderly people like that because they're going to kind of be limited. I mean, you want to use them as an auxiliary. You know, of course, they love their grandbabies or what have you. But what I'm saying is, you know, try to, you know, actually care about the people that will have your back. Don't be like some of these people out here. And everybody in this chat room probably know people like that. You just throw your kids off like, all right, they over there with their grandparents. And then you go back out in the streets and doing what you do. And I'm talking to the men and women when I say that, okay? Those are ungrateful people, and that's not cool to do, you know, your grandparents like that or what have you, because, I mean, hey, you get to a point, if they tell you, hey, look, you know what? I ain't even trying to help you out no more. You got it. You figure it out. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, you know, like I said, for those people that if you do have, like, grandparents is willing to help you out, be good to them, man. And look, I'm going to tell you right now, hey, don't be the type of person that you just drop them kids over there and you like, yeah, they with a grandparent, man. Throw them a little something for that, man. Throw them a little something for that just out of appreciation, man. You know what I'm saying? Hey, and when I say that, I'm saying break them off some, pay them, because you will have to pay, you know, a daycare center or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Show people that you appreciate them so they have your back. Because, see, one thing about having family, it's nothing that beats family, okay? Your family is the cornerstone and the backbone of, you know, any situation that you're going to be in. You would rather have your family there over any and everything. So that determines how well you treat your family, all right? So that's for the people that, you know, hey, if you out here and you got people that's helping you with these kids, man, be good to them people, man. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't never know when you may need them. But we're going to let this continue, and they're going to further lay out the situation of how this occurred and, you know, just the diabolical planning these two went through. I mean, this type of here, these are what you call true to the game psychopaths right here, okay? I mean, there's no way around this thing. And again, the terrifying thing is for a lot of people, when you see children this young in our community willing to go to these lengths, I mean, you know, we got to be honest, this is a rare case. This is not something that's common in Black America, okay? It is usually when you hear a story like this, it's them folks, okay? But as you're going to see with this one, this case right here, this is one of the exceptions to the rule. And, you know, like I said, tragic outcome, but we're going to be trying to get what positive lessons we can from to help other people. Let it continue.
The one question left unanswered is the black car.
The post office had actually logged that car because if it sits in front of a mailbox too many days, then they'll write a little complaint note and put it on the car. And so we were able to determine that that car was actually visiting someone just slightly up the street a little bit and was there innocently. When you work criminal investigations, you're going to follow some leads that look hot and they're going to be dead ends.
But the neighborhood canvas turns up another lead.
Well, we were interviewing everybody that would come in, you know, what have you seen at this house? We learned that someone had seen a red car parked in Nikki's driveway during that day.
The red car is spotted at 3 p.m. Right within the time frame police believe Nikki's unknown attacker gained access to the house.
The red car was important. We wanted to identify and find out who it belonged to.
We found that Nikki had a friend that drove a red car, and so obviously we go in and talk to that friend and said, hey, did you happen to go by Nikki's house today? And she was very forthcoming. Yes, I did. I had an appointment for Nikki to fix my hair today.
Nikki did makeup and other cosmetic work for people. They would set up appointments and come to her house. The woman, she had gone to the house, she had knocked on the door. She knocked repeatedly, thinking that maybe she was napping or that there was some other reason why she was not home. After nobody coming to the door and nobody answering, she left.
They trace the woman's cell phone records, which confirm she was only at the house for a few short minutes.
We know from looking at our scene, this was probably a 20-minute battle that she fought for her life. So we were able to eliminate her being involved with the incident. She's probably grateful she didn't go in at that time.
It's their last solid lead in the hunt for Nikki's killer.
Nikki had a business card that had her actual picture of her eyes on the business card. I kept that card at my desk because I didn't want to forget that I needed to be Nikki's advocate. It was special. I saw a woman that grew up rough, but she saw a better life. And not only saw a better life and was doing better for herself, but she wanted better for her children. I'm like, man, I wonder what's going to happen to these girls. I hope some family member is able to take care of them.
Oh, my grandma.
The woman the twins call Grandma is actually their 75-year-old great-grandmother, Della Fraser. Police learn that until very recently, Della was the twins' legal guardian.
We learned that Nikki grew up on the streets, so to speak. She was raised by Della, her grandmother. She was pregnant with the twins at age 17.
Nikki was still present in their lives, but the main role of raising the girls belonged to Della.
When Nikki met Robert, she became somewhat stable. Nikki wanted to provide a stable environment for him and thought she could with Robert's help.
And Nikki.
Now, I got to pause it because you heard the detective say that, the sister became pregnant with the children there when she was 17 years old. Look, let me say something. I know this is going to sound outdated and archaic, but look, I'm one of the few people that you will hear say this, and I will not back down or change off of it. If you are anything teen, you do not need to be trying to have kids or be out here in these streets. That is not where you need to be, okay? Now, you heard they say that she kind of grew up rough, was out there. We don't know the situation with, like, her parents and how that ended up. But see, you kind of see a cycle that'll happen if her parents, all right, Nikki Whitehead's parents were, had a whole bunch of stuff going on to the point where either they couldn't raise her and the great-grandparents had to get her. That lady's 75 years old at the time of this. She was. Okay, they got to take on that responsibility, and then the parents just disappeared, whether they was on drugs, in and out of jail, whatever the case may be. You still got this child here that came into the world that didn't ask to be here, that needs a stable home environment, okay? And this goes back to what I was saying. If you don't have those two parents there, stable, healthy parents that are responsible enough to take on the job of raising a family, then you kind of get this, and then it trickles down. You see the pattern here? I always teach about pattern recognition over here. The pattern will trickle down, and it kind of did it to her life where she got pregnant in her teens. That is the worst thing in the world to do. I even say it if you're a young boy in your teens. You don't need to be trying to have no kids in your teens either. You don't have your resources together. You don't have enough life experience to be raising kids. No, that is not something you need to be doing, okay? I don't care, 18, 19, 19, okay? 19, that's right. You heard me, 19. Anybody else using that, they got it from over here, 19, all right? You got so much more to learn and do in your life before you're ready to take on the role of parent, okay? So, I mean, you know, it just goes to show you here that how that cycle continued, and then it got to this point. And see, I'm going to say something else that I wish would have happened. Who knows how that affected these two girls here, okay? Who knows how, you know, the structure of their so-called family was affecting them mentally. And I just wish that, you know, there would have been professional diagnosis early on where they could have kind of maybe caught some of that before it led to this tragedy. And look, sometimes, you know, hey, they might have needed to be committed before, you know what I'm saying, this happened. I mean, that probably would have saved that sister's life had they had some type of professional, you know, diagnosis and caught these disorders that they had going on early. And, you know, I mean, I get it. She loved her kids and everything. But, you know, sometimes there are things that are beyond our help. And that's where the professionals have to come in, okay? Because, I mean, look, we got to understand today we know that when you say mental health, a lot of people use that as a little catch-all term, and a lot of people just throw it around anywhere, you know what I'm saying, with reckless abandon. But for the actual concern of people's mental health, you do have to take this into consideration. Our children grow up in whatever upbringing or family setting they're in. If it's chaotic, that's going to have an effect on them. You know, and if you're not a professional, you can't diagnose what that could be. And it's usually going to be a negative effect 9 times out of 10. OK, so, you know, again, this primarily is directed at younger people that's out here. If you're listening to this, if you're out with your brother, this is one of them times where, you know, I do these broadcasts where hopefully you will listen and learn just in case there's nobody telling you this. Because unfortunately, even today, you still have young people coming up. They may not have that guidance or instruction, and maybe they have to get it from places like this. And I try to be the type of platform where I can provide you with that. Yes, I'll entertain from time to time, but when I come across things like this, I'm going to definitely do what I can to give a positive lesson out of it, okay? So that's some food for thought. The things that I mentioned there, if you're a younger person, you hadn't had kids yet, please, please, please consider your actions before you start procreating, all right? Because that's not just going to affect you, it's going to affect the child or children too. Let it continue.
He felt because of Della's age, she wasn't able to provide the sort of stern rules and guidance that the girls needed at the time. The Rockdale County Juvenile Court had decided that it was important for the girls to establish a relationship with their mother. And in order to do so, they needed to move in with their mom. The two girls had just been brought back into their mom's life just a couple weeks prior to the murder.
The records indicate a fractured family history.
The relationship with Della Frazier, being the twins' great-grandmother, was very much at odds with Nikki.
She loved the twins, and she thought it best that she raise them. The relationship had become strained.
This elevates Della from doting grandmother to person of interest.
Family murders are more common than people think. Sometimes it's planned, sometimes it's done in a fit of rage. Despite how appalling it is to many of us, family murders tragically aren't all that rare.
When you are investigating something of this nature, you cannot eliminate anyone without having run them through, every possible scenario and vetted where they've been and what they've been doing and the nature of their relationship with the victim.
Police also learn there are other things at stake.
The situation with the two minors living with Della, she was able to get some state assistance. So losing them back to Nikki when she lost them had been a little financial cost, and so might have been motivation.
A motive for family or domestic murder could be money, could be the loss of money. It's a very strong motivator.
Now, let me pause it right here. Even though that wasn't the case with this situation, let's take the time to talk back about, the importance of forming or trying to form stable Black families, all right? When you take either parent out the equation, okay, but we're going to start with if the father is missing, all right? That male stability, that guidance, that discipline, problem-solving ability that we have as men, that's missing in the equation, okay, to bring the balance to the woman's nurturing and caring. When that's missing, you really see that in a family. You do, okay? So now you think about a situation where, because this is somebody's reality, unfortunately, you know what I'm saying, because this happens a lot. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes the people or the guardians that do take on children in from a broken home situation, let's say the parents on drugs or in and out of prison, whatever the case may be, sometimes that guardian may only care about those children up to the point that they're getting whatever assistance that they're getting to help raise them, as their legal guardian. There are cases like that as well. Like I said, this isn't one of them from what we understand, but that is somebody's reality. And I bring that up to say, again, for my brothers out here and my sisters, please think about, don't be selfish to the point that you never consider these things, man. You know what I'm saying? I mean, what you doing out here, you know what I'm saying? Try to get your life together before you start having kids so that you can provide a stable environment, a safe home, you know what I'm saying? Hopefully in a decent community to raise the kids. Because again, if you happen to lose your kids to the system, or if you out here just being reckless and a family member get them kids and they don't really care nothing about them more than just the assistance, that's going to be bad on them children. They're not going to be treated very well. All right. And see, a child's early developmental years are very important. And see, I want to take this back to the people that might be listening to me because, you never know. This might make somebody catch their snap if they're in this situation. If you're the type of person and you got kids out here and you just throwing them off with any and everybody, and they're not growing up with you to get a sense of who you are as their mother or their father, you're gonna have a hard time when they get older getting them to respect your discipline and your authority, okay? That has to start from, when they're young, when they're infants, all right? You got to have that there. And the only way you can do that is to have them under one roof, okay? My good brother Kermit S. Wingfield says, my biological mom was 14 when I was born. I was raised by an aunt, made it to 21 before my children were born. Hey, man, salute to you, my good brother, my battle buddy there. Like I said, everybody got different stories, man. You know what I'm saying? There's always exceptions to the rule. You know what I'm saying? That brother, hey, sometimes, too, let's talk about this before we let it continue. Whether you're a young man or a young woman in our community listen to this broadcast or you catch it on the playback, a lot of people use the cliche saying breaking generational curses. Well, sometimes you might have to be the one in a family to stop a cycle of things. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes that starts with, if you didn't have the best upbringing of childhood and you make a pledge to yourself to say, hey, look, I'm going to make sure that I give my children a better life or better childhood or start than I had, Sometimes that's the beginning of that. So I want to give encouragement to anybody that might be listening or you come across this and that's your situation. Let me tell you something. Where you start at, it doesn't have to be where you finish, okay? If you are blessed to survive whatever you went through, that doesn't mean that you can't be a good father or mother or parent or what have you. So don't let what you come from make you think that you can't do better. For anybody whose situation that might be that's listening, okay? All right, because like I said, we're going to try to give the positive parts of this as well. As gruesome and tragic as this was, there are things that we can draw from this, okay? So we're going to let this continue. And again, they're going to further explain, the upbringing, the family situation. And I want everybody, especially if you're a younger person listening to this and you haven't had kids yet, I want you to listen to how the scope of events developed until it got to this point, okay? Because that matters. In life, I'm going to repeat it yet again, as I have many years on this channel. Pattern recognition is very, very important to the development of young people, and it's very important to those of us that are older. You know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, if you don't learn how to recognize certain patterns with things, then you're not going to be able to become a wiser person, and you're definitely not going to be able to help anybody else, okay? You know, I mean, so this is what we're going to continue to listen to this for. Let's let it continue.
A custody battle has made Della Fraser the latest person of interest in the murder of her granddaughter, Nikki Whitehead.
One of the key traits of, I find, the more seasoned homicide detectives is separating emotion from fact. To do that, you have to look at the basics. You have to look at their motive, their means, their opportunity, and, you know, in certain cases, it may not always be that apparent.
Della is requested to come to the station for questioning, but shows up 6 hours later.
When we initially interviewed her, I would talk to her. I would say, you know, what do you think? Do you think that Robert or Joe could have done this? Or do you think somebody else or somebody you can think of?
When questioning family members, it is very difficult. You have to protect your case, and you have to realize you're dealing with the victims, potentially. And your victims, being the survivors, one of them could be the killer.
Detectives need to determine not only where she was at the time of the murder, but whether Della had the means to do it.
This is a rage killing, and that's shown in the viciousness of the attack and the number of times the mother was stabbed.
To look at Nikki's body and the amount of rage and sadistic premeditation to go through all of this.
This was a battle.
The physical limitations make it seem unlikely, so they turn to her alibi.
When we looked at Della, we were able to put her somewhere else at the time we thought the incident happened.
We eliminated Della as a potential suspect.
But the work involved in examining the family dynamic uncovers a new lead.
We found that there was previous incidents that had taken place at her house.
I got dispatched to a call at the house. As I pulled up in front of the house, I see Nikki running out of the garage screaming. Nikki had marks on her neck, scratches on her arms, indicative of someone that had been in some sort of a tussle.
Officer Myra Scruggs attempts to calm Nikki down.
Anytime you're involved in any kind of a domestic situation or disturbance or any kind of physical altercation, you're gonna have people that are at an elevated state of emotion. They're usually very upset, they're crying, they're yelling, they're trying to tell you what happened, which is what the case was with Nikki.
Through tears, she reveals her assailants.
She said the girls jumped on her. When I spoke to the girls, they showed zero emotion.
Now, let me pause this right here, because, see, this the part that this part that, when it was coming up here, I said, yeah, I'm going to have to go ahead and be the one to say this, and a lot of people may disagree, but let me tell you something. As much as you love your children, Lord knows you're supposed to love them. You bring them into this world. You try to do everything you can for them. But I'm going to tell you right now, I definitely, in my family, one rule that has held true, and from what I can tell growing up in this family, we had never really had no issues or problems with that occurring, thank God. But I remember the elders in the family saying it. So all the young ones, all right, you get grown enough to think you're going to raise your hand at me? When I'm providing for you, hey, that's the time you're going to have to be on your own. Yeah, you're going to have to go somewhere else. And, I look, that's the way I was raised. I wholeheartedly believe that. Okay, if somebody's being good to you, they're taking care of you, they're feeding you, providing you clothes, shelter, and you don't have the means to take care of yourself, then you get to the point where you reach a certain age where you're going to start trying to raise your hand to that person. Yeah, you can't stay under that roof. I'm going to tell you right now, if I had children, and that's what that came to, yeah, it's time for you to go. As much as I love you, you can't be under my roof. And you call yourself trying to raise your hand towards me, okay? Nah, that's not gonna work, because see, For any young person that might have a problem with what I just said, let me talk to you about how severe that is. Because today I get it. We're in a generation now where a lot of people think that the terms as far as respecting your parents and your elders is archaic. Let me tell you something what you're communicating. If you're the type of person that think that that's okay for you to be threatening your parents or raising your hands toward them, first of all, that's really not something that's common to our community. We know that's more common in the folks community. But when you start raising your hands and threatening your parents, you communicating to them that they can't trust you. Now, you got to understand something. When you're in a house with someone that you can't trust, this is the place where you're going to lay your head and go to sleep. It's going to be the place where you prepare your meals. You've given the person that owns that house, you putting them in a situation where they're going to have a decision to make. As much as they love you, as much as they care for you, if you put certain people in that situation, man, that's going to be a situation there where they may have to get you out of that house. You know, you might end up with the state or somewhere else, but, you know, you're not going to be able to stay there. Okay? So, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, this situation right here, the minute that they did that, yeah, that would have had to been the end. I understand that would have been heartbreaking for any parent to do because, again, you love your children. But when they get to that point, especially if you're not abusing them or anything, they can't be under your roof at that point. And see, who knows, perhaps if she would have taken that particular action and, you know, hey, look, they're going to have to go to the state or somewhere, perhaps the sister would still be alive. Again, we can speculate on a great many things. We don't know, but definitely that probably would have stopped them from doing that night. You know what I'm saying? Because with their mindset, I hate to say it, even if she would have put them out, who knows? They might would have came back and tried to do something to their mother. I mean, it could have went so many different ways when you look at how things are going to be described here. But again, that's where my stance is. You got children on their roof. They're trying to raise their hand towards you. Hell, I'm going to tell you right now, the elders in my family didn't even play you raising your voice at them, let alone talking back. I came from that old school as far as how my parents and the elders and grandparents in my family were. They ain't play that. They were. Respect was something that was instilled into us very, very early on, okay? You know what I'm saying? I mean, on both sides of the family. I mean, and then for me, you know, I definitely know I can speak for my cousins as well, you know, and their siblings. That would have never crossed our mind to be doing anything like that to our parents. They were too damn good to us. You know, they sacrificed a lot for us to become the men and women that we are. You know what I'm saying, in my family? So that these things would just be unheard of in my family. We've never had a situation like this at all, you know, that I can recall. If it is, it's some distant relative somewhere I have never met. But as far as my immediate family, this would be, you know, this would be much a shock to the whole family if something like that happened. But again, when they get to that point where they call themselves trying to, you know, bull up at you like old folks you see in the South, or you call yourself trying to raise up at your parents, yeah, you're going to have to go somewhere else. And again, like I said, maybe that would have kept the sister alive had she taken that action. Let's let it continue.
Their faces were stoic. They were angry. The girls had no marks on them whatsoever. It was so alarming to see these stoic faces. And I've been doing this long enough to know that no one is going to have that much calm about them. Certainly not 14-year-old girls who had been in an altercation with their mother. After they went to court on the assault on their mother from my case, the girls were placed back in the care of their great-grandmother. Everything told me that something wasn't right here and that it wasn't over.
The attack on their mother, 2 years prior to her death, introduces a new pair of suspects.
In the very beginning, we had a very established timeline set by the twins themselves. They left the house at a normal time, they got to school, and then they came home. And they discovered their mom's body.
The twins' hidden history of violence drives investigators to scrutinize their account of that day in greater detail.
Now, that's something else that I want to address that often happens in families sometimes, okay? If there's a problem in a family, especially dealing with the young people in the family, anybody in the family, you don't want to hide nothing. A problem is a problem. And the only way to get a solution to a problem is to deal with that problem and address it. You don't get a solution to problems by trying to hide things. And I'm pretty sure everybody, can probably think of a family member or whatever, something happened in your family that, hey, it need to be dealt with, but people want to try to hide it because they don't want certain family members to find out about it. Some people may react a certain way. I mean, of course, these things are case-by-case basis, but when it's something that's serious, as the children get to jumping on a parent or something like that, oh, no, that's got to be, look, I can only speak hypothetically for this, but if this happened in my family, like the part where they jumped, so one of the kids jumped on a parent, the whole family would have came together about how to deal with that. I mean, that person would not have been alone in the family dealing with that as far as going forward. You know what I'm saying? And see, again, this is where the strength of having a close-knit family comes into play to help you in these situations before they turn tragic to the point where somebody lose their lives, okay? I mean, I like I said, hypothetically, I just know how my family on both sides would react to something like this. And they would, would have came together and intervened before it would have got to the point of somebody losing their life, okay? But, again, that hiding things, you know what I'm saying, when something is going on, that never, and I want to say this to anybody listening, when you start hiding stuff of this magnitude, it never ends well. I've never seen this in life end well when there's a serious problem. People kind of sweep it under the rug, or they just try to, try to do things like forget about it, or that does not work. Not in something this severe. And again, 14 years old, jumping on your parents. Yes, so it's some psychological issues that was going on upstairs. I really wish they would have been evaluated by a professional that could have helped them because, again, let's just say after this altercation, maybe, they should have gotten them in some type of family counseling or something. I mean, I just wish that another step would have been taken before it got to where it did, okay? So, again, that's just some food for thought for people that, that's in these situations or, again, just kind of consider what we're talking about here tonight. So let it continue.
You look for irregularities. What's different today than happens every day? Initially, the twins told us they missed the bus, but they tell us they were able to walk to school and only missed 15 minutes of class. So I put my special operations team on foot. It's about 2.5 miles from their house to the high school, and I had them walk the route looking for any surveillance cameras between the house and the high school. I have our school resource officer pull the video at the high school.
The school surveillance camera shows they arrived at 10:15 a.m.
It's 2.5 hours later than what they're telling us. So that's our first irregularity.
That's a lie. How many times have you lied to me?
0.
The only individuals who we kept finding holes in stories and lies were the twins.
With their story now in question, police revisit the twins' original account of their mother's final 24 hours.
And the first suspicion at Joe was planted by the twins. They had alleged that Nikki had been in an argument with Joe the night before the murder. We were able to send subpoenas to the phone company and get phone records, and the phone call that she had been on was not to Joe. It was to a family friend that the family considers a relative. Once we interviewed this person, not only had he spoke to Nikki, but he spoke to both of the twins and thought all was well. Never would have guessed that a few hours later that Nikki would have been dead.
They now see, from the beginning of the investigation, the twins were in control.
They were so dedicated to getting out of that house and going back to their own lifestyle that They would have done anything. They would have told any lie to make themselves the victims.
But was this motive enough for murder?
They were given free rein to come and go as they pleased from Della's house. With their mother, she had rules, she had curfews, she had limits as to what was allowed and what was not.
Nikki was strict on them.
Nikki could foresee that these are beautiful young girls. They were getting into boys. They were getting into a little too much partying. She saw the forest for the trees. She knew what was coming, as with any child that age.
Now let's pause it right here, okay? Because now we got to just use a bit of deductive reasoning and common sense. You heard they said that the great-grandmother, 75 years old at the time, was the legal guardian. That's who they were with at first. Now, by the time they started becoming them teenage years, look, you know, the older people not going to be able to keep up with you like that. You know, their great-grandmother probably had a certain bedtime. You know what I'm saying? They probably started sneaking out the house or what have you. So, hey, you know, hey, they got shelter, food, clothes, what have you. But they did not have, and this is the important part, they did not have from youth up, because their father left, situation with their mother was what it was. They did not have a stable family where structure was the norm in the beginning. See, they grew up in a situation where, yes, you stand with grandmother, but it's got to be realistic. There's only so much a 75-year-old woman is going to be able to do with two teenagers, okay? So now you introduce them back over there to their mother, and she's got these rules for them, set up curfews or what have you. They're not being able to do what they wanted to do. Like when they was at their grandmother's house, oh, this is new. This is a problem. Like, hey, we don't like this. So you can imagine how there was a clash there when you introduce structure now all of a sudden when they didn't have it coming up. You see what I'm saying? So now you see how damaging that is when you don't have a stable family there. You see what I'm saying? See, we have to see how this led up to this, all right? So get them under their mother's rule. She's got these new rules for them. They're not used to being in a structured situation with rules where they got to follow them. If you don't follow the rules, you get grounded, get privileges taken away, etc. Yeah, they weren't feeling that at all, man. They weren't feeling that at all. So, you know, I hope you see now why, again, when we talk about forming stable families, this ain't something we just say just to be saying. That structure is very important from an early age for a child, okay? So I'm saying if you're a young man or a young woman out here and you hadn't had kids yet, please consider everything I said at the beginning of this broadcast. Let it continue.
I think they're very manipulative, and they know exactly what they're doing. And it had worked for them as younger girls. You know, as you get older, you're playing adult games now. You know, everything changed.
With focus squarely on the twins, they then discover a key item hidden deep within the evidence collected from the scene.
We located a journal, and the journal had specific writings about how both Jasmine and Tasmaya felt about their mom, how unhappy they were, how angry they were with her. I mean, it was a detailed plan about what was going to happen as far as a timeline for the future.
They wrote something to the effect of, if we're ever going to get back to Della's, it's going to have to be soon. And the other one responds, yeah, she's got to go.
Police now have written evidence implicating Nikki Whitehead's twin daughters in her murder.
These girls realized that they weren't going back, that this was it. They were going to have to live with their mother. So they made their decision. And the decision was to kill their mother.
Right now, it's just a theory. They still have to prove it.
The autopsy was able to reveal that there was actually a hair lodged in between the teeth of Nikki. That hair was matched to one of her daughters as having come from her.
The interesting thing in this case was that hair was found in Nikki's teeth. That is not someplace where you would anticipate finding DNA of a relative, of somebody that you're cohabitating with. So that's the importance of not only finding DNA, but interpreting its significance.
This connects back to something police noticed when the twins were first questioned.
We see one of them biting herself. And of course we're like, hey, what are you doing? And she said, I bite myself when I'm stressed out like this. Matter of fact, we look at those bite marks and there's a little space in the two front teeth, and we know that Nikki's got a little gap in her two front teeth. So we have an odontologist make a mold of Nikki's teeth and compare it. And that odontologist said that to a probability, Nikki bit the twin defensively as the twin had her from behind trying to break the hold.
Ultimately, the bite mark is what sealed their fate. I do believe that she left that bite mark for us.
On May 21st, 2010, the twins are arrested just before their high school graduation. Confronted with the evidence, they eventually make a stunning on-tape confession, revealing the true series of events.
The day began as the girls waking up and getting ready for school, and then getting into an argument with their mom about something minor. Something related to boys or a curfew, something of that nature. Maybe it was the resentment of going from a house with their grandmother with no rules or restrictions to living with their mother, who suddenly was enforcing these rules. Regardless, it created a hostile sort of environment and relationship between the two of them. Ultimately, it erupted into a physical fight.
She just screamed out and stopped. I had her hands.
Now, I'm going to pause it right here. I want y'all to see something, right? Hold on. I'm going to show you how they were looking. They were in this interrogation room here, okay? All right, that's one of them speaking right here. And look, man, that old saying, the eyes are the windows to the soul. I mean, just look at the eyes on her, man. You can tell, bro. That's something. Once you get to the point of you killing your parents, something in you is gone, man. There's something broken that cannot be fixed, okay? And, you know, for both of them, be able to lie like that and then to be faking tears and coming up with all these elaborate different stories that keep changing or whatever, and then just no remorse. See, look, I'm gonna tell you, man, a lot of people don't like to say this, but there are people amongst us that you can't rehabilitate or redeem. I mean, once you do certain things, there's just no coming back from that. You know what I'm saying? And again, you know, you kind of heard, like I said, they go from being with their elderly grandparent where they can do whatever they want or sneak around and do things she don't know nothing about. So you living with your mother. Maybe your mother's trying to provide an environment for you where you don't end up pregnant as a teenager. And then, you know, these little knucklehead Negroes start getting in their ear and they start feeling some type of way for them. They can't go and be with them. So now they come up with a concocted plan to, hey, let's get rid of mom. Okay. Nah, man. See, again, this is why you have to try to form stable black families. There was a man in the picture, their father, who ran off. You know, hey, this chances are this wouldn't have went down this way. The good chance it wouldn't have, all right? Because one, they might not have turned out this way if that structure was there from the beginning. You know what I'm saying? See, again, it's very important how you start your family. Very important, all right? You can't just start one day and we'll figure it out as it goes along. That's very irresponsible. You have some people in our community that do that, and again, it hurts the child more than anything. And in this case, it came back to hurt the parent that was still around, okay? So I just wanted y'all to see how those eyes look, you know what I'm saying? Again, like I say, you know, that's, this situation, man, I just wish that so much would have been done to try to pay attention to their mental state and maybe get them the help they need, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, that might have meant, like I said, having them committed somewhere, you know, versus leaving them in that situation and then it turned out the way it did. So let it continue.
Did you ask for feet? Kind of like a joint effort.
These two girls are now at 16. They're about her same build and stature. Nikki's a small frame woman. She's fighting for her life. The girl's choking her from behind, and Nikki just using everything that she can because she's outnumbered and out-weaponed and everything. She's doing everything she can, and she bit the twin trying to escape.
They began repeatedly stabbing their mother.
Yeah, I think I picked up a knife and I stabbed him. It was multiple times.
I'm going to show you how they look again here. I'm going to take down this still here because I want you to see this. Again, I want you to look at these eyes, okay? And, you know, a lot of this would, like I said, chances are overboards and not being hang out with their so-called friends is not taking care of them. I mean, look, and these were teenagers at the time they did this, okay? Again, for those that are not familiar with the case, if you were just coming in here, that look on her face, man, that right there, because I mean, look, it's one thing, even though this is bad, to get into it with a parent physically. It's another when you picking up weapons trying to harm them. And you think about it, their mother probably never would have thought their daughters would have done that. Even after getting into that physical altercation, you probably never would have thought they would have took it that far. But again, if they're willing to do that, you can't take that off the table. You can't say what they won't do if they're willing to raise their hand to their parent. Because you got to understand something, man. A good parent that's taking care of you, that's not abusing you, you're supposed to see them with not only respect because they brought you into this world and gave you life. There's supposed to be an innate reverence for your parents. You know what I'm saying? People aren't perfect. People make mistakes. But damn it, you should be able to see if this is the only people that's taking care of you. Your friends ain't taking care of you. For any young person listening to this that might stumble across it, your friends are not going to provide food, clothing, and shelter for you, okay? Your friends are not taking care of you the way your parents are. So those rules are there for a reason. And I'm going to tell you right now, I thank God that I had, you know, good parents growing up that provided rules, stability, and structure. Because, you know, I think everybody in here, or most people in here, you probably can remember a time when you were a teenager and you kind of, you know, you say, oh, man, you know, your parents, they got these strict rules. They so harsh. Everybody else get to do this. Everybody else get to do that. And then the older that you get, you start to appreciate your parents' structure, the rules they have for you, because you start to see your peers around you that didn't have that structure and parents. You see which route they took. Let me tell you something right now. I remember people that I went to school with. They either no longer here or they doing life sentences in prison. You know what I'm saying? Because they did not have that family structure. And a lot of them were in situations where they had to be raised by that elderly parent or grandparent or great-grandparent that did the best they could. But again, I say, you know, that's something that if you placing the raising of like a child, especially when they hit their teenage years, on an elderly person, that's really, that they can do the best they can. You know what I'm saying? But it's just going to be certain things that's going to be beyond them, especially if it's an elderly person that has some type of medical condition, you know what I'm saying, that can't get around, you know, as well as they could in their younger years before that. So, you know, there's a lot to consider there. You know what I'm saying? But again, you take a good look at how she looks here, man. That's somebody that you can't do nothing with that, man. I know a lot of people don't like to say that, but there's nothing you can do with that. I mean, just how they talking about it and, you know, no remorse there whatsoever, man. Like I said, you know, again, the lesson we trying to get from it, though, is to try to do your best to form stable families. Let's let it continue.
In the head, in the neck, in the breasts, in the back.
She's just bleeding, her head bleeding, I guess from the face. And she's just bleeding. And we're blood on the floor.
And then, like nothing happened, the twins go to school.
And as they walk down the hall, one of them veers off from the other one to a trash can. We don't know if that was a knife. By the time we saw that video, sanitation had already picked up the school's trash, so we'll never know.
At one point, they tried to claim self-defense, but it was so ridiculous. There was no way anybody was ever going to wrap their head around a story about self-defense, given what the inside of the house looked like.
And I think it was at that moment that I realized that these girls are sociopaths. You know, how do you kill your mother and then go to school and continue your day like it never happened, and then come in the door and act like you found her that way? It's hard to imagine that your own children could inflict that upon you. It's heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking.
In exchange for a guilty plea, the pair are offered a deal: 30 years each for voluntary manslaughter.
So those girls won't be out until they're in their late 40s, which I think that served justice. Because you had two young ladies that I think are, they're just evil.
I think most people are uncomfortable or unwilling to accept that as something that could exist in 16-year-old girls. But knowing that they did plead guilty and that they're behind bars and justice was found ultimately for Nikki, you're able to move past it.
They're ultimately where they need to be. It breaks our heart, having listened to Nikki talk about these girls and the potential for these girls, how intelligent they were, beautiful young girls. I hate it that their mother couldn't make it work, that Nikki tried her best. And I don't think she should have had to pay for that love with her.
And there you have it, family. You heard, how that went down. Very unfortunate, very, very unfortunate indeed, but there are lessons to be learned from it. And like I said, the primary one is try to form the best stable Black families that you can, because that does matter. You need both parents to raise children. That's a two-person job. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, look, this situation right here, it ended in a violent manner. The sister lost her life, and you got the two, her children took her out of here when she brought them into this world. I'm gonna say something. I don't think they should ever get out. I'm sorry. I'm one of the people, you kill one of your parents, man, and especially this no self-defense thing or nothing. Nah, man, I'm like this. No, that's not a no time. I know 30 years. You should never get out, in my opinion. I mean, as sad as that is, we have to come to terms with there's just certain things that are just evil. And unfortunately, sometimes evil shows itself in younger people sometimes. You know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, that's just way too easy. Like Priscilla Taylor was saying, like the mother was whipping them or what have you. Yeah, I mean, hey, she's a parent. Sometimes you need your ass whooped. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you go from grandma's house doing whatever you want to do, and then you think about it, she's the only parent. She's trying to instill discipline, and that's probably, one of her last resorts, to try to whoop that ass to make them behave. But see, if that father isn't there, because see, again, I got to go here. When you have that man in that house and he's a straight-laced stand-up brother, we don't have to whoop ass a lot of times. Sometimes our tone alone will get them right, especially if we've been there from the beginning under one roof. Okay? I get it. Society today tries to promote everything except for a stable family structure for our community, where you got your family under one roof. Don't have a child over here, over there, where you can't raise children under one standard if they all over the place. The ideal situation is to try to have them under one roof in a healthy marriage, okay, to whoever you having them kids with. All right, because if not, sometimes tragedies like this could occur. So, family, I hope everybody was able to get something positive from it. as tragic as it was, you know what I'm saying? And like the brother Kermit as Wingfield says, he says now they really have to go by the rules. And that's a good point. I'll close it on this. If you're a young person that don't like rules or structure in society, okay, well, if you go and do something like what we discussed here tonight, and they catch you, because most likely they will, okay, with forensics, you're not going to get away with that. You'll be somewhere where people telling you what to do all the time. So you too think about your actions just as much as I'm admonishing people to think about before they start families and who they choose to procreate with, okay? So family, I want to thank everybody that joined us over here on the broadcast tonight, despite the minor interruption at the beginning. One thing about this platform, whether they interrupt us or not, I will figure a way to get the lesson across, all right? For those that want to get the information and will consider my words, you know, hopefully none of you ever have to find yourself dealing with a situation like this. But, you know, like I said, some people, they will hear everything that we just discussed. It'll go in one ear out the other because they think they're going to be the smart one. And they will willingly walk into a chaotic situation and bring children into the world. And that's very unfair, okay? So anyway, we're going to have some broadcasts coming up. Definitely going to be addressing some more important subject matter here and on Patreon. Okay, again, be looking out for the one that I'm going to be sharing information with you sisters about the new thing that these people are trying to abduct sisters using out here. I think there's something that need to be brought to the forefront. And, you know, I got to give props to the people that put this together and you know, and put this information out there. Okay, so that's going to be coming up as well. All right. So with that said, family, salute to all of you. Thank you to everybody that contributed to the broadcast. Like I said, just make sure you check the community tab for things coming up because they're going to always be messing with this channel. All right. So that's it. Take care of yourselves. Black First salute. And I will see you all in future content.